guys, I'm Anita and I'm back with another video. Today I want to share with you a wrap up of the books that I've been reading recently. I am going to be wrapping up 2 weeks worth of reading right now because last week I didn't do a weekly wrap up because I had a quarterly statistics video that came up alongside a vlog, so I knew I wouldn't be able to sort of post this in a timely manner anyway. So today I'm going to be talking about 6 different books that I've read over the past 2 weeks. Yeah. The first thing that I finished was When the Duke Returns by Eloisa James. This is book 4 in the Desperate Duchesses series, and this one is following the romance of this. They've already been betrothed and actually married very early on, but they never got around to consummate the marriage because the Duke had to go out on I feel like he was in a military thing and had to go places and then he came back and she was ready to sort of consummate the relationship or marriage or whatever and start having heirs and stuff. And when he comes back, he is like, yeah, we need to probably talk a little bit about get to know each other and maybe have a new wedding ceremony before we get into anything, because he wanted to make sure that it was the right thing. And she was very surprised about this. It's not really in the same headspace, but she decides she has to try and see if they can figure things out and get to know each other again, and yeah, and it goes from there. This was definitely not my favorite. I think I preferred the last 2 books over this one. I still think this one was a little bit better than the first, so I gave it 3.5 stars. But I was interested in the characters themselves. I think they were really interesting. Our female lead was Italian, and then our male lead was an Englishman, obviously. But I liked that we got sort of an interesting, different sort of perspective from the female. But there are still a lot of things in terms of the romance itself that I didn't really care much for, so that's why I give it 3.5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Barbarian by Ruby Dixon. This is book 4, I think, as well, in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. This one we're following this woman. She is sort of rescued by this alien guy. She has been on this quest, I don't know what you're gonna call it, with 2 other girls, and she thinks that they died, but they didn't. But then he sort of takes her in and he mates with her, like when he sees her or whatever, and things goes from there. But he is one that's sort of not, he's not part of the other aliens groups that they've already come to know, and he doesn't understand the language, even though he looks completely the same as them. So you don't know what happened there, and she doesn't know if she's supposed to be scared of him. They don't obviously speak the same language, so there's a communication difficulties in the beginning. And the thing that I think that I actually like both of the characters individually, and also the romance was okay. That was not the worst thing ever. But my issue is that it's filled with, obviously there's so much. It's only, I think, under 200 pages. I think it's around 180 pages or whatever. And there's so many sex scenes over the book, as well as leading up to the first. There's all these sexual thoughts constantly in the back of the mind of these people, whether it being the female lead or the male lead, and it sort of is a little bit much and more than is necessary and would probably happen in a situation like that. So yeah, but I give it 3 stars because there are elements that I really enjoy, but then there are elements that I also don't really like, so I don't know, but I gave it 3 stars, so yeah. The next thing I finished was Conjure Island by Eden Royce. This is a middle grade fantasy book. We're following this little girl. She has been used to sort of moving around a lot because her grandmother doesn't really stay in the same place for a long time. She is a singer and has made some living out of being a singer. And one day she becomes ill and sick and has to go and goes into hospital. Our female lead, a little girl, calls the hospital or calls the emergency number, and she is admitted to the hospital. And so she can't really go anywhere because she can't be on her own. She's too young to be on her own. So her grandmother tells, and her mother died when she was born, and her father is sort of deployed. And so she is asked, so her grandmother tells her she's going to go to this island where her great-grandmother lives, a great-grandmother that she's never known about. And she comes there and finds out that it's filled with magic. And she's wondering why her mother has sort of kept this whole life, people in her family, and a secret from her, and not been able to share it, and why suddenly she wanted to share that part of her. And yeah, it's an interesting story. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as Root Magic that I read by the author, but I still really enjoyed it. And I think if you enjoy middle grade fantasy, or if you want to pick something up that's not the usual middle grade stuff, then I think you really enjoy this one. It's definitely very interesting in magic, and I really enjoyed the story and the characters and the way that it's told, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So definitely recommend it. The next thing that I finished was Trouble in Mudbug by Jana Deleon. This is the first book in a series called Ghost-in-Law. And this is following our female lead. She is yeah, we start this book by her being at her mother-in-law's funeral. She is married to this man who sort of disappeared on the face of the earth, so she's never been able to get sort of an annulment or divorce or whatever. So she's sort of stuck in this marriage that she doesn't really want to be in. And then her mother-in-law passes away, and at the funeral she sees the mother-in-law sort of rising from her casket, and it's actually a ghost, and she's able to see it, and obviously she finds out she's able to see it, and she wants help figuring out what happened to her, because the mother-in-law is convinced that she was murdered. At the same time, there are she's a sort of works on a laboratory thing, and is working there, and when she comes back to work, there's this guy who's just taken space in her office, and he claims that he is a zoologist, and yeah, they have to share the space, when actually in fact he's probably looking into her because there's something off around this area, and they think that she might have something to do with it. And the third thing that's also going on is that our main character inherits the property where her office is from her late mother-in-law, and not knowing what that entails, but then suddenly people start trying to attack her and hit her and removing her from the picture. So there's a lot of things going on in this one, and it's almost too much. It seems too much for me, and I was at a couple of times over this book sure that I would think this is too much, but for some reason she ends up managing to sort of weave it all together and make it interesting, and I couldn't put the story down, so I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. So far Jana Deleon hasn't let me down yet, but I still haven't continued on in any of the series, so I definitely need to work on that next. So make sure that I actually work on some of the books that are the next in a series, in either of these series, whichever I pick up first. But yeah, but I definitely recommend it if you enjoy sort of weird romantic suspensey books. Yeah, that has a ghostly element apparently, but yeah, it's more of a romantic suspense, so don't let the cutesy cover fool you. Because yeah, the next thing that I finished was Lightfall by Ed Crocker. This is a book that I'm reading for a blog where I'm reading books with vampires. Actually, I'm only reading 2 books, this one and another vampire book. But this is a debut novel from the author. And it follows this, it's a multiple perspective book, which I think is a little bit much considering this is not a very long book. So you don't really get a super good sense of the characters. And considering it's not, I mean, I think if it had only been 3 perspectives, I would have been able to think it's okay, I'm fine with it, I can work with it. But this was, I think at one point, I think they switched between 6 or 7 characters, and so that was a little too much for me. So I still think that there was a lot of things that I really enjoyed about it. It was dark, and they were following this, it was sort of a mystery. There's this First Lord whose son, the youngest son, has been murdered, and they're trying to figure out how. This is a story where all of the people are vampires or werewolves. There are no humans here. So obviously it takes a lot for people to die, but they are able to die with the right weapons and stuff. And so yeah, there are people who guards the Lightfall from the gray. And yeah, there's a lot of things that are interesting in this, and I think it could have been handled a lot better in a different way. And I think that it shows that he's a debut. This is a debut. There was also some typos in there, and considering this is production, like from a big publishing house, it's not self-published. I think that's a really weird. There were grammatical errors, but then there was places where like there were typos, and I feel like that should have been caught in the editing process. This is a St. Martin's press, so that's why I'm mentioning it. But I gave it 3.5 stars because I was entertained throughout the thing, but I would have preferred it a little bit different, but I'm still intrigued enough that I want to read the next one. I just don't think I'm gonna purchase it. I'm going to try and see if I can get it from a library or some other source or a cheaper way. I don't know, but yeah. So I think this would definitely be for some people because it's definitely different than what I've read before. But yeah, this is still a 3.5 stars for me. The last thing I read over the past couple of weeks was Offtrack by Esha Patel. This is a Formula One racing romance. We are following a female lead. She is just been picked up as a race driver in Formula One, the first ever to race this race, and really has a good start. And then we have our main male lead, who is also like one of the best drivers on the Formula One, and then there are sort of apparent romance. This one didn't work at all for me. There are so many things that wasn't done well. I read everything, so yeah, in the beginning I thought it was going to be okay. I thought it was interesting. There were so many actual facts about Formula One that was very interesting as one who's also watched Formula One quite often. But I just didn't, there was no romance. Like, I mean, there was a romance, but it was not very well written. I think there's a lot, I think we were at the 60% mark before there was actually a romance starting to happen. Up until this point, our male lead, he had been in a sort of betrothed to this other woman, and there weren't actually any sort of things happening in the relationship super much. And then there was the whole thing about how they acted towards each other in multiple factors of the book that I just didn't really like. So I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. And looking at the reviews on Goodreads, I think it's a general consensus that this is not a very good book. So I don't think I will recommend it to other people because it has a lower than 3-star rating on average rating on Goodreads. So it's not only me, and it's a vast majority of the people who picks this up. And so I don't think I'll recommend this to anyone. I didn't know this before I picked it up. I just wanted to let you know that this had a really low average rating as well, so I don't think it's only me. But 2 stars for this one for me, and my least favorite read of the year so far. So those are the things that I've finished over the past week. Now let's talk a little bit about the things that I'm currently working on, because I have 3 books that I'm working on right now. First up, I'm still working on Caressed by Ice by Nalini Singh. I haven't made super much progress because I read Offtrack instead, and you could consider that being a bad idea. But I'm 160 pages into this one, close to the halfway point. But it's one I'm going to be reading over the next week, for sure. On audio, I'm listening to Of 2117 Victim 2117 by Jussi Eloisa. This is the 8th book, I think, in this series. I'm enjoying it so far. I have about 150 pages left, I think. And And maybe I'll finish it today, I'm not sure. At the start of this day I was halfway into it, so. But it's been good listening to this around the house when I'm doing things. And the other one that I'm currently working on is Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. This is also from my vampire vlog, and I am closing in on the halfway point. You can't see that, but my mark is here, so I can open it so you can see it better. I think I'm probably 40% in. I'm on page 291 and it's 730-ish pages. So far I'm definitely enjoying this a lot more than the Lightfall, and they're very different, so I don't know why they're compared to each other except the fact that they have vampires in them. But I'll talk more about that in my vlog, and you will see that whenever I finish this book. So yeah, those are the things that I have for you this week. Let me know in the comments down below what you've been reading recently. What were your favorite book? Have you read any of the books that I've been talking about today, and what were your thoughts on them? And yeah, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.